evening and welcome once again to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike, coming to you from Green Dragon Gaming in Woodbridge with my buddy Alex to talk about video games. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm not so bad. I just finished Silent Hill F and I'm playing Final Fantasy Ivalice Chronicles now. I've enjoyed both of them a great deal. Nice. Hopefully we can return to talk about them a little bit more. What are you playing these days, buddy?
Just got to the Act 3 of Expedition 33 finally. I feel like I've been playing it for months now, but it's longer than I expected. But yeah, it's phenomenal. If you haven't played this game yet, you should probably drop whatever you're doing and jump right into Expedition 33. It's probably going to take Game of the Year in a lot visuals, I would say.
It's going to be on most people's list at least, that's for sure. I think it should definitely win Game of the Year myself.
It's like high art, man. The music, the visuals, the gameplay, everything is just awesome. The story, the characters. I feel like I love the characters. Like it's incredible, honestly.
It is. The story behind its making is also interesting, and I think it's going to figure into what we're going to talk about today a little bit. We'll get back to that, but it's been a bit of a week in the video game space, has it not?
Yeah, it's been crazy. There's a lot more Xbox drama going around, but that seems to be pretty standard these days. There's always drama surrounding Xbox. Like, they can't help it.
There is. There was first the news that Game Pass was going up in price, which is somewhat strange. Yeah. Considering that just a couple of years ago, remember, all the journalists were going on and on about how you could subscribe for only $5 and play all of these games that you want, and now it's like,
yeah, now they like just double like the $200 price,
something dollars a year, right?
It's crazy. And like, you think like they would slowly, incrementally do it. Like most subscription companies, you know, they know there's going to be backlash, so they incrementally. But now Microsoft they introduced like a new tier, and they made the ultimate tier like double the price.
Double?
Yeah, something like that, or like 50% more, which, you know, whatever. It
half
went
as much, anyways. That's
like
a lot.
20 to 30. Yeah,
it's not just like $5. It's
it was like a significant jump in price, and then for the same price, you have like a middle tier. I think now that you lose access to day one games. It's very egregious. It's nasty, honestly.
It's a strange thing, and there were rumors after this happened that Xbox was considering exiting the console space altogether. Mm-hmm. Rumors which I find easy to take seriously.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even anything new. I mean, definitely those rumors kind of resurfaced because of this, but that's been in question probably for at least a year or two now.
Yeah, it has.
You know, like they haven't really shown that they want to compete in the same space as Sony, let's say, in regards to hardware, stuff like that. They seem more comfortable with the idea of just publishing their games everywhere and trying to push Game Pass, right? At the end of the day.
That's right.
You know?
And, you know, it turns out there's probably some, if not sympathetic, at least some logical reason behind why it would be that way. You know? Why they'd be behaving so differently than companies like Sony and Nintendo, which are primarily video game focused. At least the majority of Sony's business is in video games.
Definitely.
And Nintendo is solely focused on that. So the option for them to exit the hardware space altogether probably
is a no-no.
It doesn't really exist.
Yeah, no,
without totally compromising everything they've built.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Xbox,
they rely on it.
Yeah, they're not as invested in that.
No.
Not in the least, because they, you know, are owned by a much bigger company that's into all kinds of things and probably wouldn't even miss this division whatsoever. But there's the other issue that I think probably behind all of these discussions and considerations is something that's also been making its rounds in the news. And that is the fact that this article is from Push Square here, describing how people don't buy anywhere near as many games as you think. And they're reporting on a survey put out by an analyst firm's Matt Piscatella. Somebody on Blue Sky. I don't have Blue Sky, frankly, and I don't follow this guy, but he apparently worked for some video game analyst firm that conducted some kind of survey whose fine details they haven't even released to the public, actually. It says proprietary and confidential at the bottom of the image, but
grain of salt here.
Yeah,
but
take all of that with a grain of salt, but it does track with popular perception of what's been going on. At least that's the case.
Yeah.
You know? And according to this firm and the analyst who works there, most people who play games buy less than 2 games a year. That's
seems
crazy
kind of surprising to me when you think, like, I mean, I guess there's a lot of people who do play video games, especially nowadays. It's
Yes.
not like a new thing. Like
It's probably more people than ever playing
yes,
video games.
more people than ever are, you know, adults, children, all kinds of
Yeah.
ages, you know. So
But it's probably at the same time safe to say that a lower proportion of the people playing games are playing the kind of games we talk about when we
yeah,
play games.
100%.
That we grew up playing games as,
yes,
right?
that's also true.
He says hyper enthusiasts are keeping things going, referring to the traditional console and software space, you know? Probably referring to the kinds of like double and triple A single player experience focused games that we're used to playing.
I think a lot of people younger than us, like in their 20s and teenagers and stuff like that, they look at it more of the social kind of gaming, you know, Fortnite, this or that multiplayer. Like,
I think this article by Eurogamer specifically mentions something about that, how a lot of people now, especially younger generations, are invested either in social gaming or in what they call forever games.
Forever games, yeah. Stuff with
like Genshin Impact or Roblox.
Yeah, live
stuff
service,
like
you know, battle passes, things you can kind of grind and stuff like, you know, Destiny chores, as I'm not even gonna say his name.
Yeah.
Coined that thing, right? But anyway.
Yeah, so it looks like this is the state of the traditional gaming space as we have always known it.
Right.
Going into 2026. And in light of all this, you can kind of appreciate Microsoft's decision to both hike the price of their service and to, at least in the future, considering exiting the console space.
You can definitely see why it would be appealing to them, right? To stop making Xboxes, especially when they're so, they make Windows, so they're so integrated with PC anyway. They started releasing their games for PCs, you know, years ago.
Historically, like, consoles have always been sold at a loss by the manufacturer.
Yeah, there was that.
The purpose of selling the console at all was to create the space for you to market software.
Yeah, it was
which was lucrative to the people who bought the box.
Exactly, that was the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
You needed that software to get people to buy your box and then to stay in your ecosystem and, you know,
keep making money off them for future software releases.
Pay for Xbox Live. They coined the whole, they invented paying for multiplayer anyway, like, so they kind of started the whole subscription thing.
But I guess the rug has kind of been yanked out from under that whole structure, you know, because if the software you would make for that box is not really what's making you money anymore, you can make stuff for other platforms that you already dominate, or just sell people a service with other people's games on it.
Yeah.
Then what incentive is there for a company whose primary revenue source is not
the actual
traditional gaming
to continue
to persist in this space, right? It doesn't make much sense. So
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they stopped making consoles altogether, especially now that they're publishing on the PlayStation. I mean, it's no doubt that the PS5 is a better machine than the Xbox Series X anyway.
Sold a lot more, that's for sure.
It's selling a lot more. So at the end of the day, they can what is
the value of making that console?
Yeah.
Like, from what I understand, though, you know, this Forbes article here does indicate that a lot of the Game Pass customers are on Xbox. It says something as almost as high as 50% of them. So
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
If their goal is to sell subscriptions, then there is, I suppose, some secondary incentive for them to remain in the traditional console space. But at the same time, if all of this is secondary to them, then perhaps their view is that in the future they might just go entirely on other people's platforms.
Yeah.
You know, be that PC or something.
Or even just introduce a low-cost console that doesn't necessarily compete with Sony on the high end, but is just like a Game Pass machine, right?
Or have other people manufacture the thing and just brand it Xbox.
Yeah, or just make PCs like they did with this new Asus ROG freaking Ally thing.
Yeah.
It's a Game Pass machine, I guess. I don't know. It's basically a PC handheld. I don't know.
So these two things seem to go hand in hand to me. The fact that Microsoft hikes the cost of Games Pass.
Yeah.
That there's speculation about it exiting the console space, and that the market that we have always known is totally shifting. The role of the console is shifting, as this Eurogamer article indicates, you know, referring to information from the same research firm and from the same analyst, Matt Piscatella.
Yeah, it seems like we're headed for interesting times, to say the least, right? Like, I don't really know what's going to happen. Obviously, none of us can see, but there's definitely going to be changes. I wouldn't doubt that Microsoft will just, you know, exit the hardware business like we just said. They're saying they won't, but that's also a complicated issue. They can't really come out and say, oh, all you people working on the next Xbox are going to lose your jobs. So they have to sort of keep it going and,
I think they experienced something of a stock price dip as that information broke, and when they denied that it would happen, it went back up a little bit. So they definitely have a reason to not come out and say something like that. But as we've seen in recent years, it doesn't really matter what this company or any company says about much of anything.
That's the other thing. They've said a lot of things over the years. They said they were only going to bring 3 or 4 games to the PS5, and now it's blown wide open. They're everything. Friggin' Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming to PS5 now. Like, it's everything's coming. So
think of all the studios they've shuttered. There's no reason to. But all of this is aside the point. I guess like the real point seems to be that the reason this is happening, the reason a company whose primary motive for getting into console gaming in the first place was chasing a commercial trend. It's because it doesn't seem to be commercially trending as much.
That's the other thing. Right? And that's nothing new for Microsoft. They got into the industry with the original Xbox for the same reason. They saw there was money to be made, and they made a console, they made a box, and they jumped in. It was never for, and I know it's silly to say, but it was never for any kind of passion for games or to make something there. They just wanted to make money.
They're not primarily game makers, right?
Exactly. But at least at the end of the day, back then, the original Xbox, they had software that was made by people who were passionate about games. That's how we got the likes of Halo and stuff like that. That was really brought people into their ecosystem to begin with, right?
That's the 360 period too. That was gave money to Sakaguchi to make a JRPG. They did all kinds of interesting stuff in that period. I guess
you could qualify
Gears of War
decisions like that to get your Final Fantasy guy Sakaguchi to make a game on your platform. Like,
their goal was to penetrate the Japanese market at that point.
Exactly.
Though,
right? So
as the market for what traditional consoles represent is diminishing, though, we can see why a company with other options doesn't intend to keep their feet in that.
They don't want to hang around. I mean, they never cared that much. It was always about the money. So if you're right. If the market's changing, and
it's about money for the other guys too, but they make their money doing this, and Microsoft, they do other stuff, right?
Yeah, they seem to at least, let's say on the Sony side of things or Nintendo, they obviously still a corporation. Still, the end goal is bottom line, how much money you're going to make. But they're funding people to make the games that have passion for it, right? And at the end of the day, it's like a circle. Those people are going to make games that they love and they care about, and at the end of the day, it'll make a profit.
I even read, though, it was labeled as a rumor, so who knows if this is ever going to actually pan out, but that Sony itself was considering kind of pulling back on the production of its traditional AAA style single player offerings, right?
I wouldn't totally doubt that either.
And that probably has something to do with this thing too, that hyper enthusiast, price insensitive players quote are what's keeping the industry going at this time, at least in terms of what it traditionally represented, So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see even the people who continue to stay in the console hardware space shift their focus towards live service, as Sony talked about doing.
Sony has been saying we're going to do that, but that hasn't panned out for them either.
Yeah, it hasn't panned out. That's true, because those kind of games are junk. They haven't been able to.
Biggest entertainment failure in the history with Concord. Like, that game just, most people probably don't even know what the heck Concord was. It just came and went so fast that the only people really in the know like us or know about it, but the mass market, which is at the end of the day what they want to attract, they don't even know what Concord was. It just failed so hard and miserably. Like, at least maybe some of the other single player style, AAA, AA, whatever, those games at least have a broader reach somehow. That's kind of what got them here, even if it's not as mass market as they want it to be, with this free-to-play live service, yada, yada, yada.
See what this guy here says?
Still works, right?
When we grew up, consoles were the entry-level product into gaming. That's where you started gaming. But today, that's mobile and tablets. So consoles are now considered premium devices around here, right? In terms of price, I guess I definitely understand it.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah, and as a result, the age group of players is going up. And even as that occurs, the age group of people going up, probably a lot of the people who grew up playing a lot of games don't have the time or money to devote to them like they used to either, right? So I think that it's probably false to say that traditional console gaming is contracted in terms of the value of that subsection of the industry, but it definitely represents a smaller portion of the overall video game space.
Yeah, plus there's so many games now.
Yeah, there's a lot of games too. It's all,
and they're
it's all so competitive.
long.
Yeah.
Like you can only,
everything is very long now.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing for me to play something like Silent Hill, which I could get through in like 5 days or 6 days.
I'm really excited to jump into Mafia. Like I heard it's like a 12-hour game, and I know like some critics panic for that, but like
I want to see more of that, to be honest.
Yeah, I want. If it's a high quality AAA dripping with that kind of feel and everything, but it's not 40 hours or 50, 80 hour, whatever. Like it's just 12 hours. That's amazing, right? It's like almost like comparing like a movie to a TV series, where instead of watching, seasons at a time, you just watch a movie and it's like over, right? It's like a shorter game, 10, 12 hours. Like it's bite size. You can bang it out in a weekend or two kind of thing, and really enjoy it for what it is, the story, the characters, whatever it is, Forever games sound terrible to me.
To me as well.
Even some long JRPGs, like I'm having trouble finishing Expedition 33, and that's a long game, but it's not
that long though. Yeah, it's not
long, right?
That's for sure. It's a modest.
Just there's
modest
so much
nowadays.
There's so much. So many things I want to play. So little time.
I feel you, man. What picture does this paint for a video game enthusiast then? Like, is it something to be pessimistic about? Like, the overall outlook is this then, that the video game market is shifting.
Yeah.
That the traditional gaming experiences that we're used to and that we idealize, single player, story based experiences, whatever genre they may fall in.
Yeah. This
has become a smaller section of what people who play games overall spend their money and time on. And what does that mean? Well, it means that companies like Xbox will hike up the price of what is lucrative for them. They'll probably stop making the things that aren't lucrative for them.
True.
We might even see devoted companies like Sony and Microsoft change their approach to things. It wouldn't surprise me that much in the near future. But I think there's also some reason to be optimistic about all this. If it's true, like Eurogamer says here, that 14% of players purchasing at least one game each month are the ones keeping the industry afloat at present, at least in terms of those traditional games.
Right.
What does that mean about those games? Well, I think it means that people have reason, if they're making them, to focus on pleasing hyper enthusiasts who are price insensitive, right? To me, that doesn't really sound like a bad thing. Like I remember just a little while ago, it couldn't have been more than a generation or two ago, when lots of companies with lots of money, publicly traded companies, got into video games and tried to make clones of other games within the space that we occupy, right? Like remember Battleborn?
Yes.
For example?
Yes.
Isn't that from Gearbox? I don't even remember. Some kind of junky.
I think it might have been.
Some kind of junky character action shooter or something like that, There were so many of games like this anyways, where even in the last generation, people would come into this space, they'd see what was popular, and I guess it was popular enough for them to try and make some crappy clone of it.
Yeah, I feel like everybody was trying to make a hero shooter at one point to try and go after Overwatch, or people trying to make Fortnite clones, and even earlier than that, everybody was trying to make an open world game. Like
we still have
maybe we'll
some
see
of that,
less of that junk, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that made it so that it was harder for you as a person that occupies this hyper enthusiast space to find good things, and a lot more often than not, the games made would be catered to somebody else. It would be superficial and commercially oriented exercises in shallowness, to my estimation. But now, probably the people who are going to occupy this space at all, who are going to make games, are going to focus instead on making something that has its own intrinsic merits, and they probably appreciate the value of that format for what it's worth. They're not trying to subvert it for some exterior motivation. We'll see perhaps more things like Expedition 33, right?
That would be nice.
We'll see companies like Konami, who had previously exited that space altogether, return and make something interesting.
That's true. While we're seeing things like, on Xbox's end, maybe potentially exiting the hardware division and not making single player or AAA games or whatever you want to call it, but then you're seeing like Konami kind of making a comeback, and
Konami, even if they outsource the production and publishing of the game to somebody else, it's still.
But then even like all the Korean companies making Souls games.
That's right. That came from MOBA spaces or from
and these Expedition 33 guys.
New guys altogether.
They came from Ubisoft and made their own studio. Not liking maybe the direction Ubisoft is going in.
They had some incredible success success with that too. So yeah, I think overall, like, though it might mean that things, if we have known them, that they'll change, and maybe there's some unsavory aspects about that, by and large, I think the quality of things that people make could increase as a result of all this. I want to occupy a space that's specifically for hyper enthusiasts.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if they're not competing with the big time, Sonys or the Microsofts, the Xbox, like, they probably will be more successful that way, right?
They'll be successful picking a niche and focusing on it, man.
Exactly, yeah.
And this dream of, like, making games for everyone, perhaps.
Oh God, we haven't heard that in a while.
No, definitely not anymore.
Thank God.
That dream is well and truly dead. At least the kind of games we're talking about here. Maybe they'll make some kind of like Genshin Impact style, like forever game for everyone. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really have no idea about any of those kind of games, but one thing's for sure, the games that we enjoy are not going to be that anymore.
No.
And that's the bright side about all this.
Yeah, maybe it's better than Microsoft.
Things are going to get shaken up a bit, but this is not, even these guys here said, some of these analysts, they said, we've heard this before, PC gaming was dead at one point, handheld gaming was dead.
Oh yeah, we've heard and seen it all. Single
none of that stuff went away.
No, none
single
of it
player's
did,
dead. Yeah, console gaming is not going to die either, even if its overall preponderance shifts, even if it becomes something more niche, even if the kind of games we're used to playing become something more niche. And I think in that very becoming niche, the kinds of things we get to see will become better,
Yeah, maybe things will get weird again, You're starting to see people take more creative liberties with stuff, even like maybe like Kojima kind of inspiring people.
Yeah, you'll have more author driven experiences where there's some kind of guy who acts as the key creative visionary in the project, and the game is being made at all because of that fact, right?
Yeah.
Not because somebody with a suit is dictating, we need a game with flying and robots.
Anthem, exactly. Like yeah. God. How did that turn out? Not great.
That kind of thing probably wouldn't come into existence anymore, given all the stuff we just discussed, right?
Yeah, I think there have been some harsh lessons learned, even with like Concord and stuff.
Concord,
like who the hell greenlit that?
I don't
said
know.
This was going to be the next big thing.
I don't know. But you know what, man? If people are going to chase trends, I'd rather do it in
another space.
In a space that I already have disdain for and would never bother with at all, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Don't be taking money from somebody who could be making something decent, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I hope to see a market cater to hyper enthusiasts who are price insensitive, frankly.
Yeah, it seems like maybe we're headed in that direction, right? Like,
maybe things need to contract and become more closed off, like a walled garden, for them to really flourish again in the way that we desire, right?
Maybe we can thank Xbox for doing, Game Pass and giving people slop that they want to just kind of dive in and dive out of, almost like Netflix style, every night sit down and pick something different. But then for us, it kind of leaves alone the part of the market that we want, right? Where people are, like you said, other people are going to focus on that. Like these Expedition developers or the Kojimas of the world. And
the comical thing is that I think Expedition did launch on Game Pass. I think even Liza P did.
Yeah.
But these games went on to sell millions of copies, probably to people who don't at all.
Crazy on other systems, Who don't. On the PC maybe even.
Who didn't play them on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So maybe these things, I guess my point is they mutually reinforce one another. And there's a way for all of this stuff to coexist for what is ultimately the benefit of the kind of games that we enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic of reading all of this.
Yeah, trying to put a positive spin on all of it.
I really do think the outcome will be good. I think that, like I said, a market focused on hyper enthusiasts who are price insensitive will be a good thing. We'll see more interesting games. Yeah.
I mean, so if you look at it, we were just talking about how many games have been coming out this year, and there's no shortage of the stuff we like. Anyway, we're eating good. Like,
people buy 2 games a year. That's nuts, bro. Sometimes we're buying 2 like every week or so.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I barely have time to play any of them. Yeah. But we're gonna try for sure. Yeah. Play as much as I can.
Yeah. I try and keep up with everything that is interesting that comes out, and at the same time go back and play older things that I miss. So
this year's been a stacked year.
It's been a stacked year.
It's been.
I think every year recently has been pretty good, though. Honestly.
Yeah, since like maybe 2019.
Yeah,
maybe
since we started talking about all this stuff.
Skip a year or two here, but obviously COVID had a big effect on things, but
it's been something good every year.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. In any case, maybe that's enough about this for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. You hyper enthusiasts out there, play your games and keep buying them, because we want to see more.
Yeah, we want more of this stuff. I want more of hopefully this Mafia game I jump into will be great. Expedition's fantastic. Get into it. It's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you guys and take care.
Oh yeah.